Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this fun little card. It is, I don't know what to call it except it is a 3D card. And in here I used the Best Catch stamp set. And out of this I used the tackle box here, the hat here, and the fish. And the fish is actually suspended and it moves. The card itself stands up independently, and unfortunately I can't get the right angle on my camera on that one, but it is suspended on the inside. Also, I used several of the dies that are in here, and it's really kind of a fun card because it almost looks like you're looking into an aquarium or looking into a body of water. And since I did this when this was my prototype, I've come up with a couple of additional ideas. In the back here are some fish against the back that you really can't see because it's basically the same color. So this time, what we need to make this card, let's go back and just say what we need to make this card. We need 2 pieces of cardstock. I used Pool Party for the back and Whisper White for the front. Then I'm going to do my little fishes in the background in blue this time so they'll show up a little bit better. Then you need a little piece of acetate. This one is 4 inches long, and I think I cut my piece about I don't know if that's ½ inch, maybe ½ inch. You need a little piece of scrap of white. You need a piece of watercolor paper. I used a piece of soft suede, a piece of crumb cake, and a piece of old olive. Now, what have I done? Then out of the old olive, and then using the Catch of the Day Framelits, Catch of the Day Framelits, I used this grass, or what are these called? I can't remember right. Cattail die to cut out those. And here are the 3 I have cut out for my work today. And in the acetate, I cut a 4-inch strip by a ½ inch, and that's the here. Then I used, so I needed 3 of these. Then out of this crumb cake, this is the soft suede. Out of the soft suede, I cut the tackle box, so I stamped the tackle box and then cut it out using the die from the soft suede. Then I used the little piece of crumb cake and I stamped my hat here, and then I cut that out of the piece of crumb cake, and then I used the stamp for the fish, and I used Stays On ink on it, and I stamped that on my watercolor paper here. And there is a die for this, and it cuts it out with a little border, and I liked it better without a border, so I fussy cut my fish out. So I've got my fish and my hat, my tackle box, my grass, and actually I've already cut out my little blue fish for there. And then I'm going to use this piece of scrap white to do our sentiment. So those are all of the pieces we need. And let me show you what I did to make this. It's really very simple. These pieces of paper are cut 7½ inches by 4¼ inches, so that when they fold up, they're the same size as a regular card, and this actually folds flat and fits into a regular envelope. And if you don't put anything more on it, don't use too much more dimension, when you collapse these ends to the inside, this will fold flat. This one doesn't because this is my prototype and I didn't cut it perfectly. But it folds flat and then fits in a regular envelope. And then when it comes out, kind of pops open because this acts like a spring mechanism, and then the card stands. And then what I did, not on this one, but I'm going to show that I did, this piece that I cut out of the center of this, I glued on the back here so you'd have a place to write your sentiment. So we'll do that today. Now, what have I changed since then? I changed the fish in the background to blue so we'll be able to see them. And I thought that it would be great fun to run this back panel through this Ruffled embossing folder, because then it would look like water and waves back there. So we're going to try that as we do this today as well. All right, so let's just get started. And what I did was I used my scoreboard, because most of my scores are very simple, and I do them on my my cutter. Let me see, I'm going to do this around this way, and I think you'll be able to see everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to take both of these pieces and we're going to score them exactly the same way. We are going to score this piece at 1/2 inch, and then we're going to score it again at 1 inch. Then we're going to turn it around and do it exactly the same on the other side. One score at 1/2 inch and one score at 1 inch. Then we'll take our second piece and do exactly the same thing. So at 1/2 inch and at 1 inch, and then turn it around. And you can do this on your trimmer. I felt like I wanted to do this one on my scoreboard on this one, so that I could assure that I had them exactly right, because you want these scored precisely the same so that they will fold up on themselves and become a flat card. So once those are scored, then all we have to do is do our folding, and we're going to make our first fold valley side out, away from the front of what's going to show here, and burnish that fold line nice and crisply. Then we're going to fold this other one back on itself and fold there again. And we're going to do the same thing on all 4 score lines. Once we've got that done, I'm going to take this, because I want to try and do the embossing on this, and I'm going to collapse these pieces here, and I'm going to stick this in the embossing folder just the way it is there. And this is a dynamic, so you only need 1 cutting plate on this one, and I'm going to run this through my machine. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. And I caught myself before I ran this through the machine, because I had started to put it through so that the wave marks went that way, and I realized that the wave marks have to go the other way in order for this to look like water at the back of our card. So there we go. We have our pieces. Now this piece is cut, and it did give me a little bit of trouble here because this is double, triple thickness, so it was a little resistant going through, but I think I got the result I wanted, which was these waves on the back. So preparing these 2 pieces then to get put together, I know that we have to do a little bit of coloring work here, so I'm going to bring out the things that I need to do this, and I'm going to bring out my cattails here. And the first thing I'm going to do is use my early espresso marker here and color in the tops of these cattails dark brown. And so there we go. Just as quick as that, I have brown cattail tops. All right. Then I'm going to take my crumb cake marker and do the stems on the cattails a lighter kind of more the brown of the straw looking pieces that hold up the cattails. Okay, just so you know, off camera I colored both sides of this because when you have this card put together and it's standing, you can look down on the inside of this, and I want this to look excuse me, just the right way from both sides. So I did color both sides of my cattails. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my largest oval die, the one that cuts out this piece, and I'm going to set that on my card front and cut out my oval. And of course, through the magic of video, I already have one of those done. So that's all ready to go. Now, coloring, I'm going to color my fish here. And what I'm going to use is a blender pen. And I'm going to use my Cajun Craze here and my crumb cake here, and I want the backs of these available, and I'm going to use my Balmy blue. All of that for coloring the fish. Now what I did was I used a little tiny bit of water, and I'm just going to put a drop of water or two in each of these, and I'm going to use my blender pen here to pick up my water, and I'm going to color the middle part of this fish. We're going to pretend this is a rainbow trout. So I'm coloring in right through here, up on my fish, and then I'm going to give him a little pink on the inside of his mouth. And I'm going to just get some of that color here in the center, coming all the way down, and then I added just a little bit of color on the edge of his fins. I'm sure that's not exactly the right way for this fish, but I thought it balanced out the color a little bit. So there I've got my color on the side of my fish, and then I'm going to put some crumb cake color on the bottom of my fish here and try to make him look as realistic. And I'm also going to go over the rest of his body and fins with this crumb cake to see if I can't get the look of the fish. They've got kind of a silvery looking bottom, so I'm going to use Wink of Stella on him as well. Okay, so now back to my crumb cake here. Let me get him pretty well colored. There we go. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the blue, because oftentimes these fish are kind of an iridescent blue color, and then the iridescent color of the coral here, and get just a little bit of this blue put down on here. And then to pick up that blue tone, there we go, I needed just a little bit more color in there. I'm going to use my blue marker to color in a few of these little circles on the back of the scales of this fish, and then I'm going to use my crumb cake kind of over the top of those to mute them down just a little bit, so you just get a hint of the blue. There we go. And you know, I don't know how correct that is according to nature, but that's as close as I'm going to get. So there we go. We've got our fish colored in. Then we have these pieces. I have my tackle box that I stamped ahead of time, and I'm going to use my blender pen here. Get that cleaned off first, and then I'm just going to swipe across that and move that color around just a little. Yeah, that end's fairly dry. Let me try this end. There we go. And I thought it would be good to just add a little bit of shading more than anything else on my tackle box here. And maybe I'll color in a little bit darker these two little rims here so that it has a bit more detail on it. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing on my hat. Well, I can just use this. I'm going to bring a little tiny bit of that color just across in the shading on my hat. It looks like a beat up fishing hat. Then I think we're ready to start putting our card together. Looks like we've got one more bit of stamping to do here, and I have my stamp which says "You are the best catch ever," and I'm going to do that in early espresso on this piece of scrap. You're the best catch ever. And then I use this little punch. And I don't know if you remember, but earlier in the year, in the holiday catalog and in the main catalog, they have those tins that have a few of the sayings and a punch that came with them. And this is one of those punches. And it turns out that this message fits perfectly, especially if I do it the right direction, inside this punch. So I'm going to cut this one out, and then I'm going to take another piece of this soft suede, and I'm going to cut out a second one, and then we're going to do that old trick where we slice this one down the middle. Scissors have all kinds of crazy things stuck to it there. Right down the middle, and then we're going to frame this little saying here with a little bit of snail on the back of my saying here. And there we go. Our sentiment is all ready to go. Our two pieces and our cattails are ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do, since this is going to go this way, and then this is going to go this way, and what we're going to do is we are going to glue these two ends together. And this is where we're going to add our fish, and I'll show you how this works. It's pretty slick. These two pieces, when they're glued together, lay flat and will fit perfectly in a regular envelope. Then, I'm just trying to make sure these two pieces match up right. And it looks like this end is a little bit long here. Trimming is good to do at this point while you still have your two pieces apart. I think this is going to have to get trimmed a little bit on this side too. You can just tell. You know, when we score, nothing scores perfectly. And the score has kind of a right, left side, and a middle. And depending on where you get your fold, sometimes it can leave things not scored perfectly when you fold them up. So I want to make sure that when I put this down, it's going to fold flat. And I'm not going to be able to see the back. And I think that will work. So I'm going to grab my silicone mat here. And I'm going to start the process. Okay, so I know that I want my fish, and I'm going to put my Wink of Stella on my fish now before I get this attached. So I'm going to put some Wink of Stella on my fish here and give him that kind of iridescent look that they often have. And there we go. And then what I'm going to do is use that little piece of acetate and a little bit of Tombow glue here on the back of my fish. And I want him to settle right sort of in the middle. So I'm going to need to set this down right across here. So let me put some glue right down in here, and then I'm going to put my piece of acetate on here and hold that in place until Tombow kind of gets its grip there. You just want to make sure it sticks down. And then I'm going to place this fish right where I want him. I'm going to manipulate that so that it comes across straight. So I want him right about there. And so I'm going to glue this down to this side using my Tombow glue as well. Now, the fact that the acetate sticks out, that's fine because we can just snip that off when we're ready. And let's make sure that that works with the hole in the card. We're going to want that fish right about there, centered. So I'm going to put some glue down right in here. And again, that's going to be hidden on the inside of the folds, so that's going to be fine. So I'm going to hold that in place until the Tombow sticks. Meanwhile, while that's sitting and getting set, we're going to take our piece here, and the first thing I'm going to do is glue down my first set of cattails here on the front of the card. I'm going to bring it all the way down to the bottom of my card and put it in place, and it looks like I can put glue just about all the way over and catch that first cattail. So I think I'm going to use Tombow, and I'm going to put glue down kind of all over here, and then I think I can come up a little ways on here. Let's just see how close that comes. Yep, I think that's going to be fine, and I'm going to be able to get that piece down and get that set into place. Okay, meanwhile, I'm going to set the next one on the inside of this panel here and get it to stick down right here in front. So I'm going to put my glue down here on the inside of the card, and then put my cattails down over that glue and manipulate this into place, kind of over to this end of the window. Okay, lots of glue drying going on here. And I may have to touch up this glue a bit afterwards, just to make sure I get it down exactly right. Then my last piece of grass, I want to show a little bit of depth, so I'm going to put it down, and so that it gives more of a 3D look to it, I'm going to put these cattails down on the inside of my card as though they're a little bit further back. So I think that, I don't know whether they'd be better up here. Yeah, I think I like that placement a little bit better. So on these, what I'm going to do is put glue down all over the back of these cattails and stick them down on the background. Set those cattails down. There we go. And then I'm going to take my two little fish and I'm going to put some glue on the back of my fish and put them in place in the background. And I'm going to stick this one down right here, and my larger one, and the blue here makes them look like they're a little bit further away. So I'm going to stick this one down, maybe even, I don't think it's too late to put it under that cattail and show him kind of in the background. And I think that when we get this all put in place, you'll be able to see a hint of those fish, which is just about right. Now, I think these two are set here, so I'm just going to use my snips to cut off that piece of acetate tail here. There we go. And I am going to put my glue down this side and this side of my back piece, and I'm going to put this piece on the front and collapse this and hold it in place. Like this, so that I know that that is going to fit on there and fold up flat when I'm done. Okay, so I'm going to hold these in place for a minute, and I've got a couple of blocks here. I think I'm just going to put on this side to hold that down on that side, and maybe I can use my punch to hold down this side while that glue gets a grip. Okay, I'm going to let that sit for just a minute, and we'll be back in a second once that's glued down. Okay, my piece has had sufficient time to stick down. Now you'll see that this closes absolutely flat, and I'm going to grab an envelope here so that you can see that this fits right inside a regular envelope here, folded flat, fits inside a regular A2 envelope, and while a little bit thick, it definitely fits inside the envelope and will travel with, you might have to put a little extra postage on this one, but you see it fits in and then pops out and then stands up. Well, when you get it to stand up, it stands up. Okay, so we have the two little pieces that we have left here that we're going to put on here. Not very happy with the coloring on that hat, but I'll have to let that go for now. And what I did was, on the original card, is I popped up my little tackle box here on dimensionals. And so I'm going to do that. I'm just going to put a couple of them on here and set that in place. And then what I did was I put the hat so that it was leaning up on the tackle box. So I'm going to put my tackle box all the way over in the corner here. And then what I did was I used a little bit of Tombow on both ends of the hat here. A little bit of glue on one side and a little bit of glue on the other side. And then I stuck the hat down so that it's stuck on the card front and the tackle box, so that it gets a little bit of dimension, but it's not flat down on there. And then the last thing I did was I took my sentiment here, and again I put a couple of dimensionals on the back of this and put that into place. And there is our card finished. And so I put this one on this side because I thought it balanced the tackle box and the hat on the other side, and this kind of takes care of that. So there we go. There is my card and the project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel. I do so appreciate it. And here is our two cards today that we made. And I'm really pleased with the whole design of this. I like the coloring a little bit better. It looks like I did this actually on lighter material on this one. So I would say this one on crumb cake and this one on maybe Sahara sand. Let's see, we've got just a week left for the month of March, and that is my drawing for the month of March is the Wonderful Romance bundle, which I think right now you can't even get the dies, but I've already got mine, so somebody's going to get that piece for the end of the month, and all you need to do for that is to put an order in on my Stampin' Up shop, www.lbedinger.stampinup, or go through my blog, www.inkandingenuity.com. And you can get to my blog, you can get to my order store either side. And let's see, the join offer, if you ever thought about joining Stampin' Up and getting the discounts for your orders, there's just a few days left, $175 worth of product for $99 through the end of the month. So, and my number's always listed below the video, and I'd love to talk to you about it to see if it makes any sense for you. Give me a holler anytime. And that's it for me. I'll be back soon with more cards and more projects. Bye!